G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Butterfield Effect. Now, I know this is weird. We are on a new channel. The channel name doesn't make sense. What is happening in the world? Okay, if you're listening to this, you got no idea what I'm talking about. Thank you for listening on Spotify if you are. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this right now and the people listening to this on Spotify, listen carefully. Listen very bloody carefully. We are making a move. We are moving from the main channel, the Isaac Butterfield channel with my name and all that business, to this channel right here. Now, if you know on Spotify and you don't know what I'm talking about, if you are watching this, you know what I'm talking about. This is the new name. It's called Cancel Me Now. And that's going to be the new name of a new podcast. The Butterfield Effect will still exist. That'll be the more serious podcast where we sit down with guests, but the Cancel Me Now podcast will be a bit looser. Okay, it won't be so much of an interview. It'll be having a few beers, carrying on like a bunch of dickheads. That is the plan. So welcome to the new channel. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. And on today's video, we have a great guest, the very beautiful, the handsome, the gorgeous Neel Kolhatkar. We talked about everything from bloody Gladys Berejiklians, friendly Jordies to eating ass probably, who knows. It's all been happening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us. And if you are watching this and you want to listen to the rest of it on Spotify, do that, or iTunes. And if you're on Spotify, make sure you check out the video version because it's pretty bloody good as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Neel Kolhatkar, a great man, a legend, a bloody mad dog, and let's get into it. Neel Kolhatkar, how you doing, big dog? What's happening?
I'm not bad. How are you?
Good, man. Good. I've just come back from my run. I'm doing a lot of Ks these days because there's no gyms open at the moment for obvious unfortunate reasons, and I got a good 10 Ks in today, so I am rooted. But and that's why I pushed the podcast forward today, because I thought, mate, if we record at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to be absolute cactus. So
you'll be gone. Yeah.
It'll be all over. What are you doing to keep fit these days?
Well, luckily there's an outdoor gym just at a park 5 minutes down the road from me. So I've been getting well into the calisthenics over the last couple of months. I'm surprised that the police haven't tried to stop the people gathering there, because there's about 10 of us every day. We've got a little calisthenics community going on there now. Yeah.
So what are you doing calisthenics wise? Are we talking a lot of pull-ups, chin-ups, all that, dips and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. Lot of pull-ups, chin-ups, even just your push-ups. And I've got a few resistance bands that I've invested in, and doing a few leg exercises with those. You could pretty much replace most of the exercises at the gym with resistance bands. And you know what? You're working out outdoors, especially coming up to summer. It's free. I'm genuinely considering just like letting go of the gym membership and keeping it at the outdoor gym. It's quite fun.
We have one down the road from us as well, and it's very fortunate that particularly for training, a lot of back and all that type of stuff, it's great to have something to do pull-ups on. And I know a lot of people listening to this maybe have never done a pull-up. Because I was always like that. I could never do pull-ups. It was always a real challenge. I was obviously very heavy, and my arm strength and back strength, lat strength hadn't developed at the same rate as my gut had, unfortunately. So I could never do one. But what I started to use was resistance bands. And I lost weight as well, of course. But resistance bands were great, because if you get a quite thick one, maybe it'll take 20 to 30 kilos off your body frame, and then you can actually start building muscle as if you were lighter. And then over time, you reduce the resistance. I think that's how it. Reduce the resistance? Yeah, sure, whatever. Reduce that resistance, and then you're able to do these more relying on your own body strength rather than the help of the resistance bands. And now I'm at the point where I do 3 sets of 12 pull-ups and then 3 sets of 12 chin-ups. And then I go to the band and just try to sort of smash the lats out. So that's my thing. And I'm at 106 kilos at the moment. That's my body weight. And so to be able to do that is quite a feat for me. I never thought I'd be able to do those type of numbers. And I think that body weight exercises, this has become quite obvious to me during the lockdowns and the pandemic and stuff. body weight exercises, I've been sleeping on them my whole life. They're great. You know, body weight squats, awesome for your legs. You can just do hundreds of them and awesome for your legs. And
they target, they're usually pretty compound in the way that they target the whole body. That's great that you can do that now. There are a few of those machines at the gym as well, where usually you can sort of give a bit of resistance with the weight coming up underneath. So if you are struggling to do the pull-ups, there's always that option. I would love to still get to a muscle up. I haven't been able to do that. Granted, I haven't really tried lately. I have been doing all right with them. I'm doing like a couple of sets of 10 here and there. So I'll report back if I've been able to do a muscle up in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I think the hardest part with the muscle up is generating enough force to get above parallel, right? So I can get to like there, sort of parallel, and then it just sort of, there's nothing sort of thing. And you see these other dudes and they're just like, just swing straight up. I wonder if by using, I wonder if by using the band, you could actually generate that force and then start to do that motion, and then you'll be able to do it yourself.
That's a good point. There's luckily with the one I go to, there's a pull-up bar that's a bit lower to the ground. So you can start off by actually just using your feet to jump up a little bit. And I can do a muscle up with one of those ones. But as soon as I start with the feet off the ground, I still, like I said, I haven't tried it for a few weeks now. But it would be cool. It just looks really cool.
Yeah.
To be able to pull yourself up and then basically do like a front dip or whatever it is. But it's very impressive.
It is. It's the number one feat of strength. It's like you see someone do a muscle up in a gym and you're like, holy shit, this guy or this girl is like, they're legit. Because like how many movies do you see where someone's hanging off a ledge and they pull themselves up? Like it happens all the time. But in real life, most people would fall to their death there. It would be all fucking over.
That's a good way of thinking about it, actually. Yeah, fuck. If I'm ever in that situation, it would be a good skill to have.
Like how many people most people would be fucked.
You're not wrong. Hey, if you don't have anything to put your feet onto, and if you don't have, there's a lot of films where like the helicopter comes in right at the last second, and just as there's always that shot of the close up of the hand just falling off the rock, and then the hero comes in and grabs them. Or if it's Bollywood, there's like a guy who jumps out of a plane on a rope, swings in, gets him, and it's all in slow motion, and then they do a dance. And I think that's actually the most realistic option that we should all be aiming for.
How does Bollywood work? I don't understand it in the slightest. Like I know there's a lot of dance. Like is that a cultural thing? How does that sort of make sense in that population?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know a lot about it, but yeah, look, they just basically made films into musicals. So their films are usually about 3-4 hours. There's an intermission, and then there'll be a lot of song and dance numbers throughout the film. And it's very exaggerated. It's very, it's highly cinematic and dramatized. It's fun. It's a roller coaster. You know what? It's magic. And then you actually look at that compared to some of the stuff Hollywood is churning out now. You know what? I don't mind a bit of the dancing and the singing. It's fun sometimes. It's
nice to see a big cast of people now. I watched a movie called Guilty or The Guilty, and it had what's his fucking name? He was in that boxing movie. Why that escapes
Gyllenhaal?
Jake Gyllenhaal. It had him in it, and it was literally, there was like 3 characters in the entire movie. 3 visual characters. There was 2 other characters that you only heard from on the phone. But this pandemic sort of style movie where you can only have 3 or 4 people in the studio filming and all that type of stuff. It was one of the first movies I've seen. The only other one, and I was on Tom and Frenchie's podcast last week, and Tom was talking about this, was Old, an M. Night Shyamalan movie. And he said that was a small cast, and it was shot during the outbreak of COVID. And from all reports, he said it was shit house. I've heard other people say it was one of the best movies he's ever seen. So who the fuck knows?
Okay. Mixed reviews, right?
Mixed reviews.
One sec, I'm just going to get my charger just in case I forgot to put the laptop on charge. Hey?
That's quite all right. But yeah, people really got into these smaller sort of the way they do things in the world, and they changed it to fit the mold of like the COVID sort of landscape, and they did it with stand up. You had a lot of stuff coming out on TikTok and whatnot where it comes to stand up wise, and your it's almost like whose line is it anyway, that type of stuff that you're putting out. Obviously you can't do that at the moment. How is that all going? How are you changing your game? I know a lot of people were doing Zoom stand-up stuff, and I wasn't doing that for obvious reasons. It looks a bit shit, but were you doing any of that? How were you changing things in your world?
Well, one good thing about the whole lockdown is that it did force people to innovate. And I was never really interested in TikTok, but during the 2020 lockdown, I thought, well, why not? I've got a ton of previous content that I've posted on my YouTube channel. Let's just splice it up and put it on TikTok. And I started generating a hell of a lot of views. I started getting traffic in America, all over the world. And I just got addicted to it for a while. There was nothing else to do. So I kept churning them out. And now it's my biggest platform.
How many followers have you got on TikTok?
1.2 million. I'm a fucking 27-year-old man who's a professional TikToker. I said, when I go to the airport now for profession, I'm not even going to write comedian. I'm going to write professional TikToker.
Why not? But people like that shit. People, that's how they digest entertainment now. It has to be in, a short... I know TikTok now has 3-minute splicing up or splices, but, it has to be in that short, really. It's sort of like Vine. That's at least how TikTok started, like Vine. It was all the short form stuff. Now it's a little bit longer.
I think it's a bit different to Vine with the features that you have, with the duets and the split screen. It's kind of like video memes, if anything, because you've got the text there and you can say... You can in the same way memes used to have that text, and then the juxtapose that text with some sort of a funny image. You can just do that, but in video form. And in a weird way, it's quite interesting looking at the trends and looking how certain sounds become popular and how people then mold those sounds to their style. And it's kind of like mimetic evolution on steroids. You're seeing which ideas prosper, who can adapt, and it's quite remarkable. It's interesting to look at. I like the sense of humor on there. I like that it's a kind of very sarcastic, caustic kind of style. And some of those games that I started doing, I started that show, Neel and Friends, actually just before the first lockdown at the end of 2019, because I just felt like all the algorithms were only conducive to people who posted a heap of content, and I just wanted extra content. So I wanted some improv. I wanted some of those line games, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're just copying Whose Line Is It Anyway?" But like, look, Whose Line Is It Anyway? They didn't invent that game. Those sorts of games are just classic comedy games that a lot of people will do.
It's an improv game. It's been taught for however many years. Yeah,
exactly. So now I've just sort of molded it where people can actually send in comments. And give us ideas to try and write jokes on. And that's actually quite interesting. It sort of flexes the comedy muscle. You have to think in a weird way. And then those clips weren't going anywhere on Facebook and Instagram. So I just assumed they wouldn't go anywhere on TikTok, but then started posting them on TikTok and they blew up. So it's just weird how things work like that. And in this lockdown as well, I've just kind of forced myself to post a lot more on YouTube. And now I'm posting like 3, 4, 5 times a week. So in a weird way, I haven't been able to do live shows, but these lockdowns have forced me to innovate. And I think it's been good for me. I know it hasn't been good for everyone. I know it hasn't been good for the industry at large, but I'm actually kind of thankful for them. But I know not everyone can say that.
Well, it's one of the opportunities you have as someone who can make a living from behind a keyboard or behind a camera. Is you have these moments where you can you can deviate the pattern that you're on. And if the pattern that you are on is, hey, listen, I'm just a comedian, I don't want to be one of those YouTube comics, I look down upon that, then you die in the water. If you decide, if you decide that, hey, this content's not moving on here, I don't want to do it, and you never post a TikTok, then you never find out, and you never hit 1.2 million, followers on TikTok, and you die in the water. I think it's all about, just sidestepping these problems. And my thing that's come out of the whole lockdown has been doing my podcast more, and I've been enjoying that. And it doesn't get amazing views or anything, but it's got a core group of people that enjoy it. And I think that's really important. That's what this whole move now is, onto the new podcast channel and with the new podcast. So we've built a studio that we're going to be going into in the next couple of weeks once, we come out of lockdown, and we can actually film with several different cameras and have it all set up, proper, legit studio. And so we're going to be pumping out all that shit, and that wouldn't have happened without the lockdown. So, it's not what happens in your life, it's how you react, all that type of business. But I think that really rings true here. But as for stand-up, I don't know if you've been doing, your storytelling shows, all that, Neel and Friends. So you've been able to do bits and pieces in between lockdowns, right? I know that when I went back on stage after the first lockdown, I hadn't done stand-up in a year. I felt like a virgin again. It was terrifying. I don't know if you saw that as well. If you felt that you'd missed out on, I don't know. I just felt a whole rebirth of the comedy sort of within me. I was like, this is something I've never done before. I don't know if I'm funny. It was terrifying. Yeah,
it's in some ways it's like riding a bike in that you never forget how to do it, but you lose, your match fitness, if you want to talk about it that way. I definitely felt that. Sometimes I think a break can be good, because you just overworked, you're performing too much, the material gets stale. But the first few gigs back, I was pretty rusty. So it took, I'd say 2, 3, 4, 5 gigs to really get the hang of it again. But you're not wrong. It's bizarre to actually take that break, because for some comedians who've been doing it a lot longer than we have, 30, 40, even 50 years, they've probably never had longer than a week off. And for them to have a couple of months off, I know in America, they've maybe had about a year off, and then to just get back into it, it would be a completely new experience.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think this is where the innovators prosper. I mean, you see someone like Andrew Schultz and Joe Rogan, just the classics, those sorts of guys in America, they've been killing it. Andrew Schultz tried that new format of sort of 2-camera stand-up. It was sort of like half vlogging, half stand-up, and, Netflix picked it up.
Yeah.
So, that's a man who, like you said, is able to adapt to the circumstances and make the most of it. And I really admire that. I really admire what those guys have done.
And it goes for all other industries too. Like, you see a lot of people who make coffees, it's all about deliveries now, and it's all about, making sure they optimize with Uber Eats and Menulog and all that shit. I mean, it's been an interesting couple of months, particularly here in New South Wales, where we both are. It's been weird. I know in Sydney you've been locked down for coming up 3 months. Is that right?
4 now, 4. I think. Definitely July, August, September. Yeah, it's about 3.5. It started near the end of June, and we'll be semi out next week. I don't know what the actual restrictions are going to be, because it's not like it's going to fully open up. So I haven't actually looked into what exactly we'll be able to do, but I do know most retail stores, gyms, bars, they'll open for people who are vaccinated, and I'll be able to do my small shows again, which I'm excited for. But it's been a tumultuous couple of months, definitely. How's it been in Newcastle? Has it sort of been similar?
Well, Claire and I moved just before the start of this lockdown. And so we're in an area where, we've got our new house, and so there's a lot going on here. We've got to make sure, that we're sort of Thank you. Make sure everything's going like the way we want it to, looking the way we want it to. But we've also got, there's a Woolies down the street and there's a Bottle-O down the street. And like I'm talking 250 metres from the front door. And there's a big park, a footy oval, half a kilometre and an outdoor gym. Other than, going to the petrol station, we haven't had to leave for anything. It's been like
Fair
fine,
enough.
so and because I make my income online, it's been relatively fine. My thing with this whole thing is I have to remember to look at this from the perspective of someone who is not making an income or his income has been halved. And that's what I think a lot of people don't do. I think a lot of people fail to do that because they are comfortable in their position. So you look at, journalists who work at wherever, X, Y, Z, the people with the blue check marks on Twitter, these type of people who are angry at protesters or angry at anti-lockdown people or whatever. These people are comfortable in their lives. They don't have to go out and do this and do that, and now they can't do it because of lockdowns. I feel like there's a lot of judgment from those type of people onto the underlings, the peasants below them, if you will. And I think that's unfair. I think people need to sort of realise that, because you see a lot of people, like whether it's a news broadcaster or someone on the project or whatever on radio, and they go, why are these idiots out doing this, and this? Well, they're desperate. A lot of them are desperate. It's not all of them. Some people are just doing it for something to do. But a lot of people are desperate. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer at all. I've had my first shot, and I know people are mad at me for doing that, which is weird. I didn't necessarily want to get one right now. I was in no hurry, but I want to get back to work, So
yeah, I was in the same boat. Yeah.
I just want to get back to work. And it's not nice to have, coerced in a certain way to go and get, something. I get that. But if it does reduce your viral load, which some people say it does, then great. I can go and see my grandparents, all that shit. Like it's at the point where you just go, fuck, let's just open the fucking thing up. And that's where we're going to in New South Wales next week, hopefully. We shall see. And I guess, it's very strange, very strange. The whole last 2 years has just been very strange in every way.
It's going to be a very memorable time. It's a historical period. So it's interesting that we're living through it. And look, when I previously said this is, it's shown who the innovators are. Some people just are not in a position to do that. I was talking about people specifically in the entertainment world. There definitely are some people who just, they're trapped, feel like prison. So I think people do have the right to protest. And I think there is a very different experience for someone who is financially well off and is able to work from home compared to someone who, and look, there has been government support, but for some people it's not the same as what they were earning before. And especially in Melbourne, the successive lockdowns, the constant back and forth.
Yeah, that
would be just extremely frustrating. And for people who have small businesses with stock that is somewhat perishable, if they thought, lockdown's over, I can buy a couple of months worth of stock now and invest in that. And then boom, a couple of weeks in, you lock down again and that stock then goes, you can't sell it anymore. So those are the people that are really, they deserve, some support and our thoughts. I mean, it's rough. It's something like Australian billionaires have increased their net worth by about 50%. And that was just in 2020. So I don't know how much they've increased it by in 2021. So I think they're the real winners. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not trying to say, we just need some sort of communist revolution or something like that. But they've clearly been able to benefit from circumstances that, it's not about someone's worked harder or someone's, just found a better idea, just because with the incredible amounts of capital that they have and the way that large corporations can still prosper throughout lockdowns compared to small businesses, it doesn't seem like a fair playing field there. And I would actually be in favour of some sort of government assistance there. I don't know what that is. I don't really envy the well, I mean, like I have my frustrations with the politicians right now, but I don't envy them having to make these sorts of decisions.
Yeah.
But it's a very tough situation for everyone.
And something I just thought of too, like if you've got a small business, or even let's say you're launching your first YouTube channel, let's say, and this is sort of, maybe we can look at the parallels between this and a small business where they make wooden tables, and they rely on word of mouth. They rely on previous jobs. They rely on, listen, I just did a job for old mate down the road. Hey, listen, up the road, they need a table, go and see them. And so if they're in Melbourne, they haven't been allowed to work for X amount of months. They haven't been able to allow the word of mouth to continue, to come and install the tables. They can't come in the house. They can't do that. Maybe that's a whole nother example of businesses failing or businesses falling to the ground because of the lack of, what's the word I'm thinking of?
Consistency.
Yeah, consistency, and when you get a roll on, that type of thing, momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without the lack of momentum, or even a bar that starts to, how bars this happens in Newcastle all the time. One pub or one bar will be like the place to be for 2 years, and then all of a sudden it'll be somewhere else. What happens if you're that bar and then lockdown hits and then you're fucked? Where is the potential for making those losses back? Is it just too bad, so sad, that type of thing? Or is there some sort of recourse where you can go, hey, but I mean, you could argue that for any business. So it's sort of a flawed system. But I just feel like it's, as you said, with the billionaires making 50% more on their profits, it just doesn't seem fair. But I mean, business isn't fair. I guess that's the argument against that.
Yeah, I mean, to what degree do we need to, is it one? I've heard some podcasts that have suggested a one-off wealth tax and all sorts of things, but then that has its problems as well. Like I said, I don't know what the solution is. Yeah. It does look like Australia is trending to, the gap between the wealthy and the middle class keeps widening. It's still a lot better than America. And then, you got to ask the question, is that actually a bad thing? Who knows? But these are the sort of things I think that, like, the long-term trends. What is the country going to look like 10, 20, 30 years in the future? That's what we should be worrying about as well, and not just get caught up in like the heat of the moment or the opening up and things like that. What is the long-term damage? I heard in America, something like 50% of children are now overweight because they've been at home. I mean, I'd have to look. I don't know that just saying that sounds pretty shocking. I
wouldn't be surprised if that. Let me Google it. I would not be surprised.
I saw it on Breaking Points. I think it's a good sort of independent American politics show. But they were saying there's just a lot of like kids are suffering a lot, having to be homeschooled for a long time, and then as a result, parents are suffering as well. This is just a big collective clusterfuck for everyone, really. And hopefully we're allowed to reflect, and then we can kind of learn from it. But some people are going to pay the price a lot more than others, and just got to look out for each other, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got here the CDC. Now, I'm not trying to disprove you at all. I'm just reading up now, and maybe they don't have the numbers for this year.
I have to check on that as well. No idea. It sounded a bit shocking.
So this is for 2 to 19-year-olds in 2017 to 2018. It was 20% then. So you would imagine that over the next couple of years, and I'll try and find the actual data if I can just through Google's, but it's definitely up there already. We're at 20%, 5 years ago. Any graphs, any special graphs getting around? Yeah, it's, I think it's stopping at 2018.
On this YouTube video, it said that childhood obesity has skyrocketed since the COVID pandemic restrictions began.
Right.
So I don't know what the actual percentage is, but
But you would imagine
makes sense that it would increase.
Makes sense. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, kids being stuck inside. Well, how about this? For adults, in 2017 or 2018 in Australia, 2 in 3, 67% of Australians aged 18 and over were overweight or obese. Like, that's crazy. And considering that one of the more prominent comorbidities of a COVID virus is obesity. There was numbers thrown around like 80% or something like that. It increases your chances of dying for 80% or something insane like that. And to think that not one politician has mentioned that even once in this whole 2-year period, that, hey, if you are overweight, you got a much higher chance of dying. They'll say that old people or people with, lung problems or cardiovascular issues or anything like that, but they will not say that if you are overweight, you might have a chance of dying. And I think that's disingenuous because it's a relatively simple thing to fix, overeating, amongst other diseases that you can't fix. It's a relatively simple one. Just stop putting as much food in your mouth. Eat less, move more. But... You know, in comparison to the other things that people will have to change to try and beat this virus, it's very simple. But I don't know. I don't think people are overly concerned. I think people are more or less just accepting the things that happen during this and considering and thinking to themselves, these will correct themselves. So, you know, I filmed a video this morning and I brought up in it, kids not being able to recognize facial expressions during a conversation. That's something that I was thinking about the other day, considering that for a 2-year-old, between the formative ages of 2 and 4, they've never seen someone, smile or smirk or act sarcastically when they say something, unless it's their own parents in their own home. It's scary.
And already mental health outcomes have been just drastically declining for people Gen Z and younger. I mean, it's just something that the rates of self-harm for children since the iPhone, basically, it's astronomical. It's disgusting, really. Like, these are wealthy countries that need to do better for children, I don't know what the solution is, but I would actually lean towards a pretty strict authoritarian measure there. If it's really hurting children's mental health that much, maybe you do just need to ban it for kids. I don't know, because you and I both make a career out of online, well, primarily online. I think once you're over 18, obviously there should be few restrictions, especially on what people say online. But I have a very different view for people under 18. I think safety measures and restrictions are appropriate for people who aren't adults. But then once you become an adult, I don't think you need to be protected from what people say online. I mean, within reason, if someone's trying to, just directly calling to kill you or something,
Sure.
There's obviously a line there. But for the most part, I would be pretty lax on speech codes online.
Well, Claire
for
and
kids, I'll change
it
for kids.
Yeah, for sure. Claire and I have been talking about this recently, about kids and having kids, and you see a lot of parents with iPads in prams and stuff, and that's a concern. Is that really affecting children in the idea of dopamine release and constant?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
So if you are a believer in the idea that if a child is constantly being rewarded through games and flashing lights and all this shit in front of them, if you are a believer in that, and that's what the science is telling us at the moment, you've got to think that it's not a good thing to give your kids constant rewards as far as technology is concerned. It's got to be a bad thing.
Yeah, if you look at even just any of the basic statistics of what has occurred to children since the internet, but then it spiked dramatically since the iPhone, essentially, since the smartphone. I mean, you got to I know some parents who just don't even give their kids smartphones, and I know they may even get ostracized for that at school when all the kids are talking about what was happening online and you know who follows who and all of that. But I think for the long-term health of your children, I don't know. I also don't envy parents who have to make this kind of decision, but it's a tough one because you don't want, if you've got a son who's playing video games with his mates in the afternoon, you don't really want to prevent him from that.
No, not at all.
So what do you do? I guess
the
time
constant
limits maybe?
Yeah, it's the constant. Okay, so to play devil's advocate with this, we grew up with telly, right?
Yeah.
And we watched telly.
Yeah, we had MSN and all that sort of stuff. It's not like we were completely
in the dark ages.
Off the internet.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think our parents probably would have looked at us and said, oh, you know, you're on there too much. And then maybe their parents looked at them and said, oh, you listen to records too much. You know, is this just a generational gap? And maybe, maybe we're overthinking it and panicking too much, and maybe, you know, we'll adapt and figure out a way to navigate the minefield of social media. But I don't know if, you know, television and like original video games increased rates of self-harm and poor mental health outcomes in terms of children as much as the internet and smartphones have. That's, like I said, I don't know. Maybe there is a trend there, but it feels like this is particularly pernicious. And I think some sort of reasonable middle ground solution has to at least take place. I mean, in China, they just banned effeminate male characters in video games. So, and they also put a time limit on everyone. That's a great move, though. That is a good move. Definitely trying just to avoid the soy boys and the whatnots out in the community. That's
Look,
for sure.
You could make the argument that it, but like, to play devil's advocate to you now, what would you define as an effeminate man in a video game? How would you depict that,
mate? Just anyone without a beard, I think, needs to have needs to be looked at.
Has to have a beard.
Has to have a beard. I mean, the reason I had you on today is because I wanted to talk about what's happening in the New South Wales government, and you're closer. You're closer to friendly Jordies than anyone I know, and I would have asked him to talk about it, but I think he's got enough on his plate at the moment. He is.
I'm sure he does. Yeah.
You speak to him every week on your podcast, if that's still happening at the moment. How's he doing? How's he doing at the moment? And how has he been throughout this entire ordeal? And I'm sure we'll go into detail of what's actually happened in the New South Wales, or maybe we should start with that. So Gladys resigned, and then John Barilaro, the deputy premier, resigned. Gladys resigned due to an investigation through ICAC, which looks at corruption throughout the government bodies, which is tied back to a former partner of hers who was in some dodgy dealings. And BRUZ is sort of, he's gone for reasons unknown, really, at this point.
Yeah, I've seen a few rumors on Twitter last night. I don't know, I deleted my Twitter account, but sometimes I just take a glance to see what's going on.
What are the rumors, please?
Well, there's people on Twitter saying he may have knocked up a staffer.
Oh.
But all of these are rumors. I'm not, you know, I don't want to get the fixated person's whatever it is after me. Even though I have the appropriate look for the anti-terror police to come after me. I'm already probably on a fucking watch list, but these are all rumors. But I heard on Twitter that it's something like his Barnaby Joyce's daughter who worked for him, and they had an affair or something. But again,
I don't believe that. He wouldn't do that.
Who knows?
It's
a mess.
His career
as for Jordan.
Yeah, sorry.
Go on.
His career has become a mess. The last 2 years, it has just turned into an absolute offal. It is very interesting to look at the control that one person can have from the internet can have over a political landscape, and that's what Jordan has somehow
it's beautiful.
done. It is amazing to look at.
It's inspiring, really. I mean, this is just David versus Goliath here. I mean, for an internet creator, an independent internet creator who hasn't had any, funding from the ABC or from Channel 7, 9, 10 or anything like that to have actually changed the course of state politics.
Yep.
It's history making. It's
there's
incredible.
Also there's the $1 million or so that the Labor Party funnels into him every single year.
Oh yeah, all of that. Yeah. And all the,
I said to him, why don't you make T-shirts? I was like, why don't you make T-shirts that say Labor shill? I'm sure they would sell out immediately.
You know what I think actually Baralara didn't realize is that when you get, when someone's trying to attack you with a smear or something, own it. You know how he was going after Marcus Paul and he said, he looks like a prawn, he's got a prawn head. And then Marcus Paul posted a photo of himself as a prawn. That's how you deal with it. You own it, okay? And, he didn't have the temperament to deal with it. And look, Jordan has been remarkably stoic throughout this whole ordeal. I feel like I've been more stressed on behalf of him. He clearly is just a man on a mission, and he has his goals, he has his purpose, and it's in many ways it's inspiring to see. He offers, again, whether you agree with his politics or not, he offers a different narrative to mainstream media, and we need that. We need competing narratives. We need different points of view, different perspectives, and we're obsessed with diversity, but we need diversity of opinion, diversity of political opinion, and that's something Jordan offers. And it's remarkable what he and his team have done. There's a whole team involved there, but he's been so quite calm throughout it. I mean, unless he's sort of hiding it away from me, but it's really amazing. He's a very stoic man.
I texted him when it was all going down and the fixated person thing was happening and the lawsuit was announced, and I said, "How you doing, man? Like, is everything okay?" He said, "Yeah, man, great." I was like, okay,
same.
Fair enough.
I think I did a podcast with him 2 or 3 weeks after it all happened, and the first question was like, "How are you doing personally?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." So.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Because I would be stressed. I would be, and I'm sure he is stressed, but I would be on edge, super stressed out.
Oh, absolutely. If the anti-terror police are coming after you and, there's a huge lawsuit hanging over your head, that's very zen of him to stay calm and stick to his guns in that situation. So it's a testament to his character. He's a very driven, he's a driven man with a purpose.
But just incredible to see him over the last 12 months or so have more of an impact on, not so much, I guess Australian politics, more New South Wales at the moment, but Australian politics than politicians do in 50 years in the business. That he has changed the course of history in New South Wales from his studio, bedroom, whatever. And that is really, that should be a scary thing for politicians. They should be fearful of people finding out their deep, dark secrets, and they should be worried about doing the wrong thing because someone's going to find out, and you can, and you don't want things happening that are untrue. You don't want rumors like that, but things that have happened or allegedly have happened, having someone to be able to push that message out to the world and not have a hidden agenda is very new. It's never happened before. Usually to have a voice, you have to be someone who plays ball. Jordan does not play ball. And that's got to be scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's great to see. It's really fantastic seeing new media. I like that term.
So do I.
Rather than online media or social media. I think new media are making waves because the implications are huge. Old media, I also don't even like mainstream media anymore because, how do you define mainstream? Who's watching who? What actually is the mainstream? But we'll call it old media or legacy media. Speaking about what we were talking about earlier in the podcast, they haven't been able to adapt. The internet has just killed them. They have all these exorbitant costs weighing them down, and then they've tried to be extremely clickbait. They've tried to be extremely partisan. They've tried all sorts of things, and it's just the slow death of old media. And, I'm not going to say they're all hacks and they're all biased or anything like that, but look, in many ways, they do have themselves to blame because they have been pushing all sorts of agendas. They haven't really heard people out. It's frustrating to watch some of the news channels or the, so-called intellectual shows in Australia and even in America. And I think, people are going to seek out people who speak to them and who are authentic. And, none of us are perfect, but we'll admit when we say something wrong, and we'll try our best to be as truthful and honest as possible. But we don't have this sort of air of arrogance that it feels like that the old media people have. We tell you what to think. We're the gatekeepers of reality and information. Yeah. And I mean, there's a war. It's like an ideological media war, really. I mean, first it was just comedy, which is something that you would have experienced as well. It was just online comedians and traditional comedians. To an extent, that's still ongoing. But look, online is winning. There's a few battles here and there that old media and old comedians win to. But overall, the trend is that everyone's moving online. Everyone's seeking out, comedians that suit their style, that have their perspective, and similarly, journalists and commentators that, speak to their sensibilities and their worldview. And there's positives and negatives. There are some people who can just start a YouTube channel and completely lie about things and still generate an audience. But, I did a podcast with Jordan about this actually last week. Whenever you hear the old media talking about the dangers of new media, it's the, what's that saying? It's the pot calling the kettle black, because they've also dabbled in misinformation and attention-grabbing headlines without nuance and, tried to shame a lot of people, and they only have themselves to blame. This isn't, it's not like online commentators and personalities are uniquely dabbling in conspiracies and not looking at all sides. It's everyone. It's all forms of media. So it's a good time to be an internet creator. I always, wanted to get it. When I started my career, it was always just a springboard to try and get onto TV, to try and get into radio, or to try and, get into even Hollywood. But now, I mean, why would you want to jump onto a sinking ship? I mean, if the right opportunity comes along.
You did a lot of TV too.
I did a few little TV spots here and there, and they were fun. But once you've had the amount of creative control that you have online, which is just infinite, you can say and do whatever you want, really. It's frustrating. It's restrictive going back and just having to deal with a script that you maybe don't like, and having a multitude of people putting in their input. And sure, you can create amazing big budget productions, which I think will still exist. They'll be on Netflix and other streaming services, but comedy on TV in particular is I mean, it's all but dead, really, because, you can't afford to be too niche. You can't afford to be provocative and controversial. You have to be extremely safe, and that's never good for comedy. And
it's the same shit. Everyone talks about the same shit, and it's boring.
Exactly.
I've seen, like, I don't watch any free-to-air TV, like none, and I don't think very many people do. But you see the people who are on a lot of these, like, the quiz shows or whatever, the comedians that come on, and we know these people, and it's like, they're all right, but why are they on the fucking TV? And it's not a jealousy thing. It's just like you understand how that model works. It's not about rewarding the best. It's rewarding the people who play ball. And legacy media, I prefer, as you kept saying, old media. And I think they push the idea of the legacy media because it's this, legacy, you know, nah, fuck them. This old media sort of mindset where they come on the TV with this air of arrogance. You know, they speak with a voice that, coming up in the news, we've got this coming up and this is why you need to listen to us and this is the... They are full of shit. And that doesn't mean that the local newsreader has some strange agenda. But when 70% of the media in our country is owned by one dude, how can you trust anyone? You know, you see the rich are getting richer, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But when it comes to the rich making more money to buy up more media, then yeah, that's a bad thing. You know, how do you force diversity into that? I don't fucking know. But it's a concerning process to be in. Maybe not so concerning for us now because it seems we're on the arse end of it, but it must be a concerning thing to look back on for everyone, to look back at the last 100 years of news and go, you know, how much was bullshit? Because we have people who will, go out and say what they like, and they are basically journalists. You have people like Friendly Jordies. Even Avi Yemeni, people say, oh, he's not a journalist. Why? Why is he not a journalist?
Exactly what defines journalists there.
You went to you did you went a communications degree with, full of 1,000 other assholes that no one's ever going to care about. You know, you're the proper journalist. Fuck off. You know, Avi is doing his thing. You're doing your thing. And, he's on the ground and all that type of shit. I know a lot of people bag him, but I got time for Avi. He when that whole Jewish joke came out, he was the only person, he was his first person to call me, and he's, a person of Jewish background. And he was the first person to call me. So I've got a lot of time for him. And I always get the shits where how people just go, just because of his politics. No, he's full of shit.
Yeah.
I think it's dodgy.
And what's becoming really tiresome is just labeling everything as alt-right or far-right. I mean, there's a lot of nuance there that,
it's a bad argument.
Old media needs to, pick up on here, okay? You can't just say everything you disagree with is alt-right, okay? It's pretty juvenile, really.
Well, it's the boy who cried wolf.
That as well, right? Because then at what point do people start saying, well, fine, then I don't care about your labels. Like, I'll own it and just here's what I have to say. Here are my opinions. It's strange with how they treat, on ABC and SBS, again, a lot of those comedians, I know them all. They're wonderful people, but everyone who's not white is like this kind of pet, it's like this little puppy dog, and they want them to say how hard their life is and how hard it is being not white. And, I don't want to do that. I mean, sure, I've got jokes about white people and bogans. Fuck, I made a career out of that. But I don't want to get onto ABC or SBS and just bitch about how hard my life is because I'm brown. I just don't, no disrespect to other people, but I just don't see how that's empowering either. To me, it's very infantilizing. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't feel empowered seeing that. And it almost feels like you have to do that if you actually want to be a non-white personality on TV. You kind of have to play the race card to a degree that it's just demeaning almost, like you're some kind of pet. And
that is the word. That's the word, Neel. It's demeaning. And they do it to women too. It's not just brown people, black people. They do it to women too. How they're a minority, I'm not sure. But they do it to women too. And it is from a white boy who wore a fucking singlet in the sun for an hour today and is sunburned. It looks as demeaning as fuck. It's not good, and it's got to feel bad for someone like yourself.
Yeah, I can't stand it, man. It's just I can't see how that's, quote unquote empowering. Look, if people have endured really horrific instances of racism or something like that, I should definitely talk about it. It should be brought to light. But that's all. There's like no talk of, hey, I've done well in this country, and because of this, the laws and the economy of this country, I've been able to do well, which I maybe wouldn't have been able to do in another country. It just is like demeaning's the right word. Patronizing.
Yes.
And it feels like it's there to sort of that mentality exists for maybe older people who have some guilt or who want to feel like saviors. They can pat themselves on the back and say, oh, I'm virtuous. I've listened to the stories of the oppressed people. And like, well, what have you done?
Yeah.
You know, it's just the whole thing. It makes me cringe really, really hard. And yeah, I'm not about that, you know, and every interview that I do with old media journalists, they just straight away go to the what's it like being a brown comedian? What's it like being brown? And it's like they're trying to get you to say, yeah, my life is hard and my life sucks. And it doesn't. I got a great life. Like I'm successful, and you know, I'll always stand up for people who are genuinely victims of racism and things like that. But I don't want to sit here in pity and languish at how some drunk person made a slur towards me. You know, I just don't. That's not what I'm about, and I find it extremely demeaning.
And you can't live your life like that. I mean, you know, everyone knows that supreme racism has existed forever. Like, I was watching this TikTok the other day, and it was a dude remodeling a chair in America, and he was a black gentleman, and inside the chair was slave hair. That's what was used as stuffing. Like, that's crazy shit. I feel like, and please let me know if I'm wrong, I don't know if people are as racist as they used to be. Everyone says Australia is a racist country. I don't think so. I think that the person who's going to look at you differently, genuinely, not make jokes, but genuinely look at you because you're brown in comparison to me, I think they're just shit people. I don't think it's about racism or sexism or any of that. I think they're just shit people. The same people who would judge you for being brown, even though, you know, you're as Australian, if you want to look at it like that, as anybody else, if they judge you for being brown, they're the same type of person that would kick their dog or would not hold their daughter's hand in public because you don't want to be seen as less masculine or something like that. They are just shit people. And I don't think we're ever going to get past that, because in a population of, let's say, 1 million people, you're going to have 10,000 cunts. It's just, that's it.
It's such a complex and nuanced discussion, and it's not done any favors with the rhetoric on old media, because you're right. I think it's human nature that there will always be a small percentage of crime, of racism, of hatred, of discrimination. And I think perceiving an entire country and just defining it as racist is reductive. Also, there are just different definitions of racism now, right? There's the sort of critical social justice left that sees racism in systems, and if there is a disparity in any given complex economic system, it is therefore a racist system. Therefore, anyone who benefits from that system is inherently racist. I don't agree with that definition. I do think racism is an individual act. And I do think people of color, which I think is a really patronizing term as well, like how's it different to colored people, right?
Yes.
I think they can be racist too. I don't agree with this definition that racism is just prejudice with power, and it is a perspective, yet they're teaching that perspective like it is fact. Now, I don't want to silence that perspective. I don't want to purge that perspective. People should be exposed to different ideas. People should be exposed to different philosophical perspectives, but it is a perspective. And when you teach it like fact, it's dogma, okay? And you know, there's a conversation now in America about critical race theory being taught to kids in school. I'm sure that same conversation will be occurring here in a couple of years. It's just a matter of time. And I can't see how this is helpful, how this is beneficial in the long term. So many people conflate these sorts of ideas with just teaching history. We should learn history. We should learn about everything that happened in history, all the atrocities, all the horrible crimes committed. Who's against that? Who's out there saying, no, we shouldn't learn about, the horrible crimes that were committed against the Indigenous population? No one's, have you ever heard someone say, no, we shouldn't teach kids that? No one's saying that. Okay. It's more a discussion about what are the implications of that today, and how do we deal with that? How do we sort of converse about that? And is it embedded into, something as complex as Australia today, and can just be defined as the system? There's no actual diversity of opinion. That's the big difference. And at the end of the day, I actually think it's bad for a young boy who may be brown or black to be constantly told that they'll always, their blackness or their brownness is some kind of disability, right? That's not empowering. That's not an empowering message. That's not going to be conducive to them working to the best of their abilities and achieving their full potential. And I also don't think it is, because there isn't a discussion about cultural differences as well, behavioral differences, economic differences. We don't talk about class anymore. I did a podcast with Jordan a couple of weeks ago as well, and still one of the biggest factors as to how unequal your opportunities in life will be is actually the income of your father. And this was a study that was only 3, 4, 5 years old. And race and gender actually, they played a role. So I'm not saying we stopped talking about it, but they played a comparatively minor role. And, as someone who grew up with parents that were, middle class, some maybe even upper middle class, I'm very thankful for that. I had a very financially privileged upbringing in that sense. I don't want to sit here and languish in self-pity as well, because you also ignore all the benefits that you had. And it's also it's a sort of easy out. It's a way to absolve yourself from personal responsibility, to say, and I did this when I was younger, right? Oh, the reason I'm not on TV is because I'm brown. The reason I'm not successful is because I'm brown. That's a horrible mentality to have, because then it's putting all the blame on external factors, and you're not looking inwards and asking, well, what could I be doing better? How could I be working on myself? Is it all just because I'm brown, or is it because these other comedians are maybe better comedians? That's a sort of tough realization to sometimes have to grapple with, but it's a better way of looking at yourself in the world as an autonomous individual who is reasonably in control of their life and the outcome of their life. Again, not to say we don't discuss anomalies and disparities and advantages and disadvantages, but ultimately I do believe every individual has a degree of autonomy that allows them to achieve their full potential.
It is not limited at color of skin. It's the same for young women, and I talk about this a lot. I think that a lot of young women are growing up seeing men and young boys as the enemy, and I think that is just it's devoid of factuality. I think it's bad. I think it's evil. I think it's just shit in general. Like, to have
collective guilt. It's not nice.
And it's not good. And it's the same with racism, and it's the same with atrocities that have happened. Believe it or not, brown people have committed atrocities, white people have, black people have. It's more human than you would imagine. And I feel like racism is also more human than you would imagine. I think back in the day, racism was probably a good thing, because you would be fearful of someone who didn't look like you coming into your camp or your tribe or whatever. If someone doesn't look like you, you'd be like, oh, shit, we're all going to die. Now, and I think we're just moving past it, which is obviously a great thing. We're moving past it, and we're moving past it quickly. Over the last 100 years, we've leaps and bounds. And I just hope that eventually we get to the point where this color of someone's skin is finally recognized as something that doesn't matter. And I think we're pretty much there in polite, normal society. Between, in my street here, there's probably 4 different skin colors, and no one gives a shit, because that's the norm. No one cares. And But if you believe the media, it's the number one thing. And if you believe social media, it's the most important thing that you could ever imagine.
If white people are in Australia long enough, they'll get tanned enough to stop being white anyway. So
I don't know if I believe that. I've been here for 26 years and I burn at to a crisp immediately.
Give it a few generations. Give it a few.
Man, there's an African dude who lives across the road from me, and I saw him today, and I've got the red fucking lobster arms, and he's just out there with his shirt off. I was like, you fuck. How dare you running around with all your fucking melanin? I burn.
Melanin privilege, right?
Oh, just so many skin cancers growing on me this afternoon. It's just shit. But anyway, now that's white privilege right there, I'll tell you.
Yeah, there's no discussion of the fact that we're still animals and we have physiological behaviors embedded into us in our genetic code. And is that an excuse for discrimination and what we now see as immoral acts? No. But are those feelings going to arise, like you said? Are we just sort of naturally programmed to be cautious when we see people who don't look like us?
Yeah.
Probably. That makes a lot of evolutionary sense. Now, it's then whether you act on that as to where the judgment should occur, I think. But if you have those initial feelings, I mean, look, I don't think there's anything wrong when I do look at films, when I do look at especially Hollywood films, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, that guy's brown, right? Which just doesn't mean anything, right? Why am I connected to this random guy who's like halfway across the world? But it is like a sort of a natural biological instinct, I do think. And there's this conversation now that everything is learned, everything is socially constructed. We can create this perfect utopian society, and I think it's naive. And I think we'll do a lot more harm than good by trying to create this, this just idyllic, perfect utopia that has never existed in human history. I don't think it ever will exist. And we're heading down a dangerous path if we keep believing that.
It hasn't existed in human history nor animal history. Not on this planet.
No.
It doesn't exist. And even if it does get to a utopian, perfect world, there'll be a fucking asteroid that'll turn up and blow it to pieces, and they'll start again. It'll be refreshed. I don't know now.
Yep.
I think people expect the world to be all sunshine and rainbows, and it's not. But it's also not as bad as you think. And I think we live in this world now where so many people are so constantly terrified of what they're going to say. Every word has to be measured. If you work in an office building, you have to be super careful what you say. You can't say anything without being fearful of, being sacked or whatever. And does that mean that you should be able to say whatever you want to whoever you want? No. You shouldn't go up to Stacey in accounts and go, hey, Stacey, you got a big fat ass. I'd like to eat that ass. I had to throw in one eating ass comment in this video between both of us. Neel, obviously Australia's biggest arse eater. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or not. Prolific arse eater.
Gold medal arse eater.
Well, you wouldn't want to be the bronze medal. Imagine if you were third in the world for arse eating. That's how you just weren't quite good enough. What makes you... All right.
How do you measure it? Hey, what is it? The technique? How you move your tongue around the rim, or what is it?
So this is what I want this new podcast channel to be about. I want serious chats, but I also want to talk about arse eating. Eating arse is the next. I think it is the electric car of 2021, because back in the day, people would have laughed at eating arse. Yeah, we're there.
Yeah.
Tesla, Elon Musk, loves eating ass. I think that people, 5-10 years ago, they laughed at eating ass. They said, no way. They're all about just the front garage. No. Right now, if you're not eating ass, you're behind the times.
You're a bitch. Get in there.
Get in there, you little pussy. What are you scared of? You're scared of a little poo? Come on. Get up in that grill.
You want to get out there and face COVID, but you're too scared of a bit of butt.
Imagine if that was the cure for coronavirus, is you just had to eat one person's ass. Like there was one, like they were carrying the cure in between their ass cheeks, and that was how you got rid of it. Oof. I wonder how many people would take the cure.
You had to eat Clive Palmer's ass.
Okay.
What about that?
There's a question for you. Would you eat Clive Palmer's ass to get the cure from coronavirus? Because it's only killing 1% of people.
The cure for the whole world, though?
So does everyone have to eat it? Or do you then get the antibodies from eating Clive Palmer's ass and they can take a vial of your blood and they can replicate it and create a vaccine that's 100% effective? You never have to get a booster or anything like that. And all the anti-vaxxers are like, yeah, we've checked it for fucking, we've checked Clive's ass for all the magnets and the chips and stuff. There's no chips in his ass. It's all good. It's all kosher. Let's go ahead. 100% vegan, natural, all that shit. Would you eat Clive's ass to save everyone's grandma from coronavirus? Neel Kolhatkar.
I will be the hero humanity needs. I'll get right in there. If it's for the world, you can't not do it.
No,
you can't not do it. You got to.
You're like Braveheart, like Mel Gibson and Braveheart, Sons of Australia. My name is Neel Kolhatkar, and I will eat this ass on this day or the next.
It'll be the next moon landing, televised across the world, the most rated video on Pornhub. I will save humanity by getting right up in Clive Palmer's butthole.
Yeah, but if it's going to be like the next moon landing, then there's going to be all these people who say, no, it's bullshit. Neel didn't eat Clive Palmer's ass. I don't know if everyone on this current video knows who Clive Palmer is. I hope Connor's put up a fucking photo of Clive throughout this entire thing. Maybe a photo of him being very sweaty. But yeah, no, Clive, mate, all the power to you. He's doing well, I think. He's got what's that other bloke's name? Yeah. What's his name? Clive's new understudy. He's coming
I didn't even know.
Oh, he's Craig Kelly. Craig Kelly's coming out, and he's
yes, guy. Just all over YouTube. Get off my fucking YouTube ads, Craig. We get it. We get it. You don't spot the lockdowns. You don't need to keep going.
The thing about Craig is, I think it's important that he's heard, as I think a lot of people do. Whether or not you agree with him or not, it's not important. It's important that everyone's heard, and that's what I'm glad that the Australian people are. I think we're pretty open with free speech and all that type of stuff. Maybe less open now than we ever have been. I think people, particularly with anti-vaxxers and lockdown people just like, nah, shut up, you're not allowed to talk. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think we need to listen to people, because some people, it could turn out that they're right. You never know. So I think anytime you try and stop people from talking, like I just did to you, I think it's a bad thing. Yeah,
free speech, which we technically don't legally have in Australia. We don't have a Bill of Rights. We should. We've got implied, I think it's implied political speech. That's how it's worded. It's messy, There's going to be people who say some dumb shit, but the alternative is worse, and that's always been my opinion about it. Life is about trade-offs. You can't, if you want to speak freely, you've got to accept that there's going to be some dumb cunts out there that are going to say some horrible, ridiculous shit. But that is still a better option than some random bureaucrats, or even worse, big tech employees deciding what the acceptable speech is. And look, don't cry fire in a crowded theatre, all the usual caveats, but you're right. Granted, there is people will say, cancel culture, and the fact that we're very politically correct is an indictment on free speech. For me, the big thing is, are you being arrested for something you say? If that ever happens, then I think that's time to get into the streets. There's not many things that would make me protest. That would.
Yeah.
Something like cancel culture, right? It's you can lose jobs and you can really cop it mentally, but people do also have the right to say things like you're a racist, you're a sexist, all of that, because that's their free speech as well. I would call that more like a culture of free speech, right? And the culture of free speech is definitely diminished because, yes, people are trying to walk on eggshells. And look, it's important to be precise with what you say and not just, if you're having a serious conversation as well, not just sort of just speak off the top of your head and say anything with no thought of the consequences. But people should be allowed to explore ideas. And that's the beauty of podcasts, I think. We can just explore our thoughts and, not have to worry about saying the exact right thing to not upset everyone. And I think that's important. I think podcasts have just done wonders for that. And I like to think it's improving because now, people who were otherwise extremely strict about what they say and are now calling out cancel culture, right? There's people like J.K. Rowling and I'm pretty sure even Childish Gambino. These people are talking about how damaging cancel culture and the politically correct environment we're currently living in is, especially for artists. That's the big one. When artists are afraid to take risks, then it's gone too far,
I think with cancel culture, it's just that mob mentality that is the dangerous part. It's the like my best example of cancel culture is not even the stuff that happened to me with the whole Christchurch massacre joke. Like that was, people were calling sponsors like Surfshark and stuff that sponsor me and they said, oh, we're not going to sponsor him for a month or whatever. They went for the sponsors, they rang venues and stuff and venues were freaking out. Like that's not a very nice thing to do. But, if you're angry, I get why you did it. The stuff that I don't like is when it's the worst, sorry, where I was going with that, I completely lost my train of thought. Where I was going with that was when I talk shit about, and Alex Williamson was someone else who was talking shit about this person at the same time, was K-pop fans and One Direction, what's the other fucking, the Korean, BTS stands.
Yeah.
Man, they went, I have never been more overcome with fear for my career than that time. So I made a video. And I jumped on a plane to Brisbane for an hour and 10 minutes or whatever it takes. And that video on Twitter got, I think it was 300,000 views in like an hour and 20 minutes. Massive. And man, it was just all negative shit. Just BTS fans, like, because I said their songs suck. I'd never heard any of their songs. I was just jumping on the back of Alex Williamson's thing that he was doing with them. And man, they were ringing venues. They were ringing my management. They were ringing everybody. They were trying to get my accounts cancelled. They were ringing, someone rang my bank. Like, it was crazy. They just went fucking full ham.
Jesus.
Yeah. So don't talk about BTS. BTS are the best, right? I was like, I always said, no, I'd never succumb to cancel culture. But at that point I was like, no, delete everything. I don't want this. This is bad. They were going after everything. And like, so venues were getting, they put out this little document and they were getting all these phone calls, like thousands of phone calls from like these angry Korean kids. And they were getting like emails after. Mad.
I didn't realize it was that intense.
And Alex got the same thing. So
wild.
That's cancel culture. That's that mob mentality. That's the lynching, the public lynching, and it's that's not good. But yeah, to your point, cancel culture has its side of free speech on either side. But as to what you said about artists, like, as well as I do, and I think most logical people know that some of the things you say on stage, you definitely don't mean. They're silly, they're wrong, they're disgusting, and you just say
it can be taken out of context, and it's very uncharitable the way people assume the worst all the time. And sometimes, we have to try jokes to an audience, and you can fuck it up, you can misstep, you can say something that you thought was funny in your head, and then it turns out it wasn't, and then everyone was filming it, and then you're fucked. But also, people can say, like, I don't like this joke, I thought that joke was bad, but why do you have to go and, like, ring people's bank account or whatever? I mean, it's in a weird way, I kind of feel sorry for all those people. Like what's going on in your life that you need to just block them? Even then, make a tweet or something, but like to ring up venues and to go through this, it's ideology that's just gone, that's been completely bastardized. And I think, you know what, to be as charitable as I possibly can, I think modern living is void of purpose and meaning. And, you know, I think someone like Jordan Peterson can articulate this far better than I can, but people are looking for a cause. People are looking for something to fight for. And for a lot of these people, this is something to fight for. Like, this is the enemy. Like this, we need to help the oppressed people by like taking down these people who have careers that are dangerous and spreading dangerous ideas and harming the environment for people who've been historically marginalized. And look, that's a noble thing to look out for, but the process and the ideology and the thinking that has caused that conclusion is flawed. It's extremely flawed. And for a lot of people, I think they maybe need to look inwards and understand that there's maybe things they need to work on and you know, the old adage, clean their room before they try and control the external world. And sometimes it's not easy, right? Like I used to delete comments and block people when I first started if it was really uncomfortable and if it was something I thought was just really dumb. And then I sort of thought to myself, well, hang on. In my locus of control, with the limited power I have, I'm willing to just get rid of this person on my Facebook. Well, what are the implications of that? What if I owned a reasonably large business and an employee was saying something I didn't like? Would I then be firing them? What if I was a dictator in Saudi Arabia or North Korea? If a journalist said something I didn't like, would I be killing them? And then I sort of came to this realization, like, holy shit, maybe I would be, because with the small power I had, I was willing to just like delete these people and block them. And I thought, fuck, I've got a bit of that like authoritarian impulse in me. And I think that's a perfect example of people being able to look inwards. Not saying I'm perfect or anything now either, but what you think is wrong with the world, find it in yourself and be in control of it first. Because if everyone did that, it would disappear. It's really that simple, actually.
I really do think, and I believe this has been my belief for a long period of time, that a lot of people miss religion. And I'm not a religious person in any way.
Same.
I just think that people, for whatever reason, human nature is to be religious and have something to fight for. And these people that ring up venues and go after people and make their whole lives about tweeting about something they're upset about, that is their religion. The people who fight for, or to be a white savior and save all the brown people, that is their religion. Or be a male feminist and save all the women, that is their religion. To be angry at all men, that is their religion. And I genuinely think that if you just made a switch, and instead of being so negative about everything in the world and finding the worst everywhere, to make your religion about bettering yourself and going down to the park every day and doing your calisthenics and then doing your own, comedy night and all those type of things. Like, what I'm doing with my running and stuff. Like, I'm doing 10Ks 3 days a week. And then I'm doing my gym training in between all that and everything I do is trying to make myself a better person and create a better life for me and my family. And I think the more you do that and make that your religion, then you are on the way to becoming a better, happier and healthier person. I think if more people did that, we'd have a lot less problems in the world. And to go back to what we spoke about before with the incident rate of people taking antidepressants and anti-anxiolytics, over the last 2 years, there has been an increase in prescriptions for antipsychotics, anti-anxiolytics, and antidepressants of 25%. So 25% increase, which is massive. Huge.
Yeah, not good.
Terrifying.
Really alarming trends.
But
I couldn't agree with you more. Look, individualism and personal responsibility have their merits. They're not white supremacist constructs, okay? They actually will help people of color more than anything, I believe. and to just sort of dismiss that and say, well, some people have a life easier than myself, and some people have been dealt a better hand than me. Well, don't compare yourself to those people. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Just all those cliches. They're simplistic. They're hack, but they're true, and they're not easy to live by. And when I started looking inwards a bit more and working on what I could do, and not just even then, like not blaming the comedy industry, not blaming mainstream old media. I think you can still be critical of things like that, but not let my inability to climb that, what I believe is sort of ideologically corrupt hierarchy, impede, first of all, my sense of self-worth, my happiness, and what I'm able to do. I actually achieved a lot more. It's people that are just paving their own way, who are actually creating the hierarchies of the future and the establishments of the future. And that is need to have a mentality of I am in control of my actions, of my life, and I can sit here and get annoyed of what I'm seeing on the internet, or I can turn the phone off and I can go for a run. I can read. I can do the little things, little daily practices that in 10 years will pay massive dividends, because people underestimate what they're capable of over a long period of time. It's kind of like the share market, right? They say, it's not about when you invest, it's about time spent in the market. I think it's a similar sort of concept with just good daily behavioral practices. It's not about when you start doing it. It's about how long you're doing it and how consistently you're doing it over an extended period of time in your life, and it will pay dividends.
Yeah, it's a cumulative effect. It's compounding interest.
Absolutely.
Believe it or not, I'm writing a book at the moment, and the chapter I'm working on is basically about small wins and how everything is built on small wins. Everything good in your life is about small wins. It's not about one big picture. It's all about the ingredients to the cake, all those cliches that you were saying before. But there's a reason they're cliches, is because they're true and they work. And I think that people see these vast goals and these horrifyingly unachievable things in their life, but they don't look at it from the micro level, and they don't sort of work out the easiest way to achieve something is by breaking it down into small wins. But Neel, thank you very much for joining me, my friend. I appreciate your time and your efforts, and my camera's about to die, so I'll cut it short. But ladies and gentlemen, where can you catch Neel? You can catch him on TikTok. He's finally got a blue tick. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got it after a while. I was performing for their event. So I said, well, look, if I'm going to perform, you've got to give me that blue tick.
Well, I said to you,
took a while.
They didn't give it to you straight away. I was like, mate, play the race card straight away. Play it.
I said, like, if I get to 1 million and I don't have the blue tick, I'm going to play the race card. I'm going to go all out. But no, they didn't. They gave it to me. So Neel Kolhatkar, NeelKolhatkar, YouTube.com/NeelK, posting a lot now. Got 2 podcasts, do one with Neel and Jordan, and Sex Sells with a C. It's another podcast I do about relationships and dating. So yeah, plenty of places to check my content out. And beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to this new channel. The new podcast will be here in a couple of weeks as soon as we come out of lockdown. And of course, Spotify if you want to listen to this in the car, if you're a big fucking crazy fucker like that. Other than that, toodaloo, au revoir, be a good motherfucker, bye-bye.